Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am Kaia Swift, and I'm the marketing manager here at Heller Consulting. We've been getting a lot of questions about what nonprofits are doing in the fallout of COVID-19, how they're adapting, and what will be next in our market. So I am bringing in our founder and chief strategist, Keith Heller. Keith has been in the nonprofit technology space for over 2 decades and has seen how the sector has changed and evolved over time. And I thought he would be great to speak to the new normal that we're all facing and what things are going to look like now as the dust is settling. How will technology be able to support a new way of working for nonprofits? So, we're going to be covering that today. And I'd like to welcome Keith. And to start this discussion, Keith, I just wanted to acknowledge this idea of digital transformation. It's a term that we heard before COVID-19, but it's been coming up a lot more now. So, in your own words, how would you define digital transformation and how is it manifesting right now in nonprofits?
Great. Well, thanks, Kai. I appreciate you organizing this conversation today. So digital transformation to me is the difference between when I got started almost 30 years ago now and what things are possible today. And when I got started, everything was paper and pen and forms in triplicate. And if you got and photocopying, and if you got to put something in a computer, well, that was revolutionary. And now everything's available to us. But just because it's available to support our work doesn't mean we're using it. And so digital transformation is moving to take advantage of the technology that is available to us today to run our nonprofits. And there are key areas like how do we engage with our stakeholders and our constituents? So of course, email has been growing over the last 20 years, but it's at about for fundraising, at least 1% a year as a percentage of fundraising. Well, 20% over 20 years, that's not a lot compared to the potential. So we need to realize the potential of that. How we engage with our stakeholders, there's so much more than just sending emails now that we can do. And how we work with each other internally is huge. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, I know. But this digital transformation prior to our current circumstances seemed optional. And now it doesn't feel so optional because we're working remotely. We have to start to do this. So we see it, kind of in four areas. One is how we're operating our organizations, how we're engaging our constituents. The next one, another is fundraising, and the next is mission delivery. So I know we're going to talk about these things, but.
Yeah, so kind of working down that quick list that you put together there. We'll start with the operating virtually. And I mean, obviously something that's we are doing right now, and lots of nonprofits have been forced to go inside their homes and communicate with each other using online tools. So, what are some of the specific ways that you have been seeing nonprofits shift their operations to online?
Yeah, so obviously we're all familiar with remote meetings now, a lot more familiar than we thought we would ever be, right?
Yeah.
We're becoming experts in what's my background and these types of things. But we're also learning what it means to have effective meetings remotely, what works and what doesn't, and how do we organize our days as groups and as individuals in ways that really work for us remotely. And these aren't interim solutions now. This is something we're going to need to do for the long term. So how do we function as a team? I know for our own firm, right? We've already operated virtually for a long time, but we're having to do so even more so. And so we're coming up with message boards and ways to engage with each other so we feel the collaboration and the community that's part of working together. So I think that's really important. And of course, there are tools that will help us do these things. Not only meetings, now, of course, you can't just walk down the hall and tap someone on the shoulder,
Right.
ask them for an opinion. How do we share documents that we're working on? right? Well, email is kind of cumbersome, and what version am I on, and all of this is a little annoying. And we're not sitting around a board, like a boardroom table, conference room table to talk things out or whiteboard. So, collaboration tools for sharing documents, sharing ideas, these are really important now. And of course, I'm biased, but I think CRM systems never more important than they are now, right? We're doing all this work with our different constituents. We need to store that data. Um, the outcome of those engagements with our constituents are not something I can just tell you because I happen to see you around the coffee maker. That stuff has to be getting into the CRM, and our business practices have to be supported by the CRM so that we trust the data that we have. Now, again, back to digital transformation, all these tools are there. But up until now, they're optional. So now we really have to start using them.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's interesting the CRM piece. Obviously, that's our bread and butter, and that's where we have been getting a lot of questions. And for me personally, I've loved hearing the stories of how our clients who have these robust CRM ecosystems be able to lean on that as they've responded to, increased donations or lack of donations or just needing more data and needing more touch points with their constituents. And so could you talk a little bit more about the CRM piece of that?
Yeah. So, CRM is ideally the database of record, but we know there's all these rogue systems also out there, spreadsheets and access databases and different things people have cooked up, and having all that disparate data is even trickier than ever. We need to get that stuff consolidated. So we need a CRM that will accommodate all of our various business needs. Again, support really efficient business practices. Most organizations, I'm going to include the ones I've worked in over time, how do we carry out our business procedures? Well, we kind of do it like we've always done it. And we
Yeah.
band-aid here and there, and we change things a little bit, but not too much, because who likes change, right? And now we're living in a world where, like, if you don't like change, ooh, it's really stressful.
Yeah.
So, so we need to change our business practices. If we're not going to be in the same rooms together, if we're not going to be in the same building, it becomes even more important to have business practices that match our current situation and are flexible. And so, a good CRM will allow you to change your business practices. Now, just because I'm allowed to change something doesn't mean I want to change something. But at this point, we really need, it's going to be good for us to do that. And, because we're all working in a more, separate fashion, if I have a question about how to do something in the CRM, I can't just lean around the cubicle and say, hey, how do I do this again? So we need the CRM to be more intuitive. And the way that we set it up has to make more sense. And we have to embed more training into the CRM, more help sheets and videos and things so that people feel comfortable using it. Um, and it is our collective brain now about our constituents. We need to support it. Also, as you go to plan and think about your CRM, a lot of people are, you have these different systems. Everything's in flux.
Mhm.
So ideally, things are interoperable. The CRM plays well with other technologies that you have. Another key point is being able to report on things, because if you're using the database a lot and you're putting all this in there, well, it's not useful unless you get something useful out.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing I just want to highlight at the moment, I was having a conversation with a colleague of ours yesterday about this, and we have all sorts of best practices about how to set up your CRM and what it means with other databases and blah, blah, blah. If your organization is struggling to survive at this point, uh, you don't necessarily have to worry about those things. You have to go get the technology you need to survive
Mhm.
and do what you need to do, whether it's
Mhm.
fundraising, engaging with your beneficiaries, volunteers, whatever it is, and we'll figure it out later
Yeah.
how that all fits together. We recognize While we love our ideas about how things should work with the CRM, we also recognize, listen, we're all under difficult circumstances at the moment. So at the same time, we kind of give you permission, like, yeah, ideally do these things we write about it, but if not, go do what you need to do, and there'll be a way to figure it out later.
And I think one of those most critical things that we've been seeing is people needing to engage with their constituencies. That a lot of the places, like a lot of the ways that it's built in when you're in person, a lot of those were just kind of ripped out from under a lot of nonprofits immediately. And so now people have been scrambling to how do we genuinely engage our constituencies from afar? And on the flip side, there's also all of these people now who are stuck at home and feeling helpless and wanting to help in some concrete way. So they're turning to nonprofit organizations and donate or to get involved in some way. So, how are nonprofits responding to that interest, or how could they be responding to that interest? And then, how do they keep the engagement going past that initial donation or initial interaction?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, and I appreciate you, bringing up what we're seeing with our clients, and it's so heartening. One of the things that's just a silver lining in all of this is how much people want to help. They want to be engaged, and there's this great movement of the human heart in response to what we're seeing. And so, how can we help support that and channel that and harness that? Um, and at the same time, there's competition for the people's attention, with other nonprofits. So the nonprofits that do this best are going to garner the most support and engagement. So technology can help with all of this. So the two areas we're seeing are marketing automation tools. Um, of course, we're all used to sending emails and engaging in social media and such. But it's sort of like every time I go to send an email, well, I got to set it up and I got to hit, to design it, and I got to hit send, and oh, I'm done. All right, now time for another one. Okay, go through the whole process again. Marketing automation tools kind of helps you set up a whole multi-channel, multi-email campaign all at once. I'm telling you, of course, and you do this with us.
Yeah, it's
But
important stuff.
yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. But what it means is you can have regular communication with your constituents without as much effort. That's the main piece. It also means, because it's less effort, you can publish more content, and people are eager to hear what's going on. They want, they don't need you don't need to wait until the end of a particular project or initiative at your organization to report back on how it did. You can say we're in the middle of it and this is what we're seeing. And that's not necessarily objective data, it's subjective stories, but people want that. They want to hear about that. And then lastly, the marketing automation tools let you personalize the content, right? So if I show interest in a particular aspect of your organization, you can make sure I'm getting that content first or surfaced for me. And it doesn't take a lot of work to do that. And all of that makes the constituent feel closer to your organization. Um, Now, on the flip side, or on the other aspect, which is getting them engaged and active, we're looking at online portals and communities, right, where they can go, with a simple login, set up an account, and then be more part of your organization. We see this for organizing volunteer efforts, particularly now that things like social distancing and scheduling is much more complicated.
Mhm.
Communities and portals can really help with that type of feature. And it also lets people in who are kind of in your inner community communicate with each other,
Mhm.
which reinforces the sense of being part of something.
Mhm.
Those are the main things we're seeing.
Awesome. Just different ways of bringing people together, and that there are a lot of tools available. And I know that we've been doing our own research, and it just feels like there's so many even popping up that are, either free to try, or it's you have a low cost for nonprofits. So we've
Mhm.
definitely been, I think, encouraging people to just try these out and see if they work.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, experimentation.
yeah.
This is a great time to just try things and see what works, because there's not a playbook for this.
Hmm.
Um, But I would say the playbook is don't sit still,
Mm,
be
yeah,
brave, try stuff out. Let's see what works and then share.
yeah, yeah. So in that same vein, fundraising is a huge thing that is, it's different depending on the nonprofit, right? So some like food banks or health related organizations might be seeing an increase in donations or an increased interest. And then others are coping with lost donations or lost revenue from events that they had scheduled in the spring and the summer. So, what are some general trends in fundraising, tools in fundraising, trends in fundraising that you've been seeing and researching?
Yeah. Yeah, this is so big, and of course we're seeing the impact vary greatly depending on what type of nonprofit we're talking about
Hmm.
these days. Um, but I think the theme here is what we were just talking about: experiment, try things. We don't know what's going to work, and we don't know if the thing we experimented with in April and May is going to work in September and October.
Hmm.
Um, so take an open-minded approach to this and just get out there and see how your constituents respond. The things that we have been seeing thus far that have been working are people are switching from in-person peer-to-peer to virtual peer-to-peer.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool. Actually, I just saw yesterday. I'm in California, and there's a several hundred-mile virtual bike race now
That's
set
cool.
up
Yeah,
in California.
that's
Like,
awesome.
oh, who would have thought of that? Well, I
Hmm.
mean, very smart people would have thought of that.
Yeah.
And so we'll try it out and see what happens. Um, and that's sort of on the cutting edge. We also have people going old school, and we have a client who recognized, hey, wait a minute, everybody's at home. They spun up their telemarketing program again.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of pull it out of the closet, dust it off. and, and now they're using modern technology to do the calling and things, and it's like, oh, all right, well, maybe there's something from the past that'll work now.
Hmm.
I've also heard direct mail. People are at home to open the
True.
mail,
Yeah.
and so we can try things on our own, and we can also share with our peers what we're trying and what's working and what's not. And it's a time of great experimentation out of necessity.
Hmm.
So I think trying things at a small scale, if they work, expanding them and being nimble.
Hmm. Yeah. And then I think a lot of them are being forced to be nimble also with mission delivery, like the practical, how do they get services to the communities that they're serving? Um, so what have we been seeing nonprofits do to continue reaching out and serving those populations that really rely on these organizations?
Yeah. And the work that nonprofits do is needed more now than ever, and we're
Mm.
seeing that incredible demand. And I think, thank goodness, we have the nonprofit community already established
Yeah.
to be able to deliver these crucial services to people. Um, Again, from a technology perspective, we're seeing these online portals and communities because it's a way to um, support and enhance collaboration. We see nonprofits, of course, needing to be more creative about how they engage their volunteers.
Mm.
Um, we also see them expanding their relationships with existing and potential partners, right? Because the demand is so high, you need to marshal the resources, and you can't, as a single nonprofit, especially in this environment, go out and just hire more people,
Hmm.
right, to meet the demand. So you look and you see, okay, who else in my community or extended community is providing similar or adjunct services that I can work with to serve my constituents, and technology can support that kind of working together with a partner organization. We also see that people need to um, keep really good track of the constituents they're serving, and
Mm.
and um, especially if you have a constituent population where multiple people serve that one individual or family, right?
Mm.
Again, I can't just kind of walk over to your desk and say, hey, I know that you're now going to be working with so-and-so or this family. Let me tell you a little something about them.
Yeah.
Instead, everything needs to get into their case files, right? And so using a good CRM to do case management is really, really
Mm.
helpful now.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, and I think in all of this, so much is changing. That's a lot that you just listed. Um, and I think that there's this question of how can nonprofits know what is working? We are encouraging them to try things out, look at new tools. So, how do we know which things are temporary? We might need to just use them for the short term and then get rid of them, or which things have maybe changed permanently. How can nonprofits use those tools to find direction through all of this?
Yeah. And what's temporary and what's permanent, the only thing that's going to tell us is time.
Yeah.
Uh, but we're far enough into this where if something has been different for 3 or 4 months now, it's probably going to keep being different for at least that long.
Hmm.
And so it's time to do something about it and not be waiting. And people are doing this. I'm not saying anything that's not already happening. Um, there is the question within your organization of what do I do and what's working. So if
Hmm.
you decide, oh, I'm going to try this out, um, you want to measure, did it work or not, right? And so up in advance, you have to decide, how am I going to know that this worked? Well, I will have reached this many people, or I will have had this percentage success rate, or give yourself a ballpark. It doesn't have to be hard and fast. And then you need to measure as you deliver, whether it's delivering emails or delivering fundraising appeals or delivering services, where am I relative to those metrics? If you're using a CRM or point solution, they probably have reporting tools built in. If what you're doing spans more than one tool or solution, then you need a reporting tool that will span more than one solution. And those are what we call business intelligence or BI tools that are able to grab data from multiple solutions and give you a report. The nice thing about that is while they're newer to nonprofits, they're not new in the commercial sector. In the commercial sector, as they've done with the CRM technology that we now use, have spent a lot of money on these things, have pounded on these things for years, and they've come down in price and they've come down in complexity, so we can adopt them. The last thing I would say is there's not technology at all. We share. We share with other nonprofits. This is what we tried. This is what worked. This is what didn't. This is the beautiful thing about the nonprofit sector is yeah, we might have overlapping services or overlapping regions that we work in or something, but we're not competing. We're really
Hmm.
all here for the common good. And so
Hmm.
sharing what's working and what's not, helps all of us.
Hmm. And that is it's a great note to end on. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Kai.
Thanks.